that Nixon had despised her, and he even said if it hadn't been for Martha Mitchell, there would have been no Watergate I don't forgive. And I don't need anyone to understand that steel-cold statement didn't come from a movie scene, it came straight from Julia Roberts herself on live television as the lights dimmed and the facade crumbled at 58, with the spotlight no longer bright enough to hide the scars behind the scenes. Julia finally confessed she had stayed silent not out of weakness, but because the time hadn't come to expose those who shattered her faith in friendship and colleagues, and in Hollywood itself, 5 names, 5 shining stars were the very ones who broke her, humiliated her, and made her at times want to quit acting. But why would a million-dollar smile like Julia Roberts harbor such deep resentment? And what could have forced her to stay silent for decades? The first culprit was Hollywood's own killer. In Address, Julia Roberts, born on October 28, 1967 in Smyrna, Georgia, wasn't a Hollywood child. She grew up in a broken family, watched her mother struggle with poverty, and once declared, "I never dreamed of becoming a star. I just wanted to survive." But fate had bigger plans for her. She exploded onto the silver screen. Pretty Woman wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural statement. She didn't have classic, glamorous beauty, but made all of America rethink what a leading lady could be. From Erin Brockovich to Notting Hill, Julia Roberts became Hollywood's million-dollar smile and irreplaceable icon. But what lay behind that smile? Julia stole her friend's fiancé when she publicly dated Elle Levitt just days after he split from his fiancée. Julia tossed his husbands like shoes when she called off her wedding to Kiefer Sutherland just 3 days before the ceremony after catching him cheating with her best friend. Julia faced a national backlash when accused of being the puppet master of domestic drama for stealing Danny Motor from his then-pregnant wife. The press labeled her a homewrecker. With a smile behind the scenes, Julia once slapped a male co-star on set after he secretly altered lines to steal her spotlight in a critical scene. One director branded her a backstage nightmare for daring to demand a different film ending, where a woman's happiness didn't depend on being with a man, and now she's ready to expose those. She once called colleagues, co-stars, friends who behind the scenes were wolves and artists' clothing. Keep reading, because if you stop now, you'll miss the most explosive Hollywood takedown of 2025 music. The first name, Joy Behar. I don't hate her because she's a woman, I hate her because she's a man. In disguise, wrapped in full grace, Julia Roberts has never been afraid to speak her truth. But there was one moment, just one, when she stood up and walked off a live broadcast not out of rage, but from the sting of a calculated insult by a woman. Once seen as a colleague, Joy Behar, it happened live on The View at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Julia appeared as a guest intending to open up about motherhood, grieving the loss of her beloved mother and the burden of fame, but Joy, with a voice as sharp as a razor, twisted the conversation. Do you think your success comes more from your legs and your mouth than from your talent? No one on stage had time to intervene. No music, no commercial break, just Julia Roberts staring directly at Joy, whispering through clenched teeth, "You're turning me into a joke, a smiling piece of meat." The audience fell silent. Julia removed her mic and walked off stage without a single word of explanation. The next day, social media split into one side condemned Joy as a woman tearing down another woman under the guise of comedy. The other laughed it off, but Julia, after nearly a year of silence, finally speaks in this video. "I can't forgive someone who made me feel like a slab of meat on Hollywood's butcher table to me." Joy isn't a talk show host, she's a killer in a dress. The second name, George Clooney. "When the man you thought you'd marry sells your kiss for publicity," Julia once said. There was only one moment she truly considered leaving Hollywood to live a different life, and that was when she fell for George. Their connection sparked while filming Ocean's 11 in 2001. No spotlight, no scandal, just long night shoots. Clooney bringing her coffee by hand and quiet little texts like "thinking about you." Julia believed him, believed enough to consider stepping away from the sequel and following him to Italy for a simpler life. But what happened next? was the first real slap of her life delivered gently coldly and in public in an exclusive interview. With Vanity Fair, George Clooney unexpectedly said Julia is amazing, she acts well. And Kiss is even better. That kiss, I think it alone will bring audiences back to the theater. What no one knew that Kiss was real, and the first time Julia gave her whole heart on a film set. And the final heartbreak, Julia discovered George had shared a bedroom photo of the two of them with a producer in exchange for the director's seat on his debut film. The price of that photo, $2 million, and a power seat at Warner Brothers. He didn't sell me to the press, he sold me for a directing deal. Julia said nothing. She simply faxed him a note with one single line, "Thank you for making me famous by killing me." Since then, they've never been seen in the same frame again. No hug, no congratulations, nothing. The third name, Sean Penn, I'm not afraid of a nip slip on screen. I'm afraid of the director laughing behind the monitor. In 2005, Julia Roberts agreed to star in an indie psychological drama directed by Sean Penn, then hailed as Hollywood's mad genius. The original script had no nudity. Juliet only signed the contract on the condition no explicit scenes, no detailed sexual content. But once the film entered post-production, an internal leak surfaced featuring a scene where Julia was fully nude, shot from a hidden rear angle, clearly captured. While she was changing costumes on set, Julia immediately demanded the scene be removed. Sean Penn's only response: "Audiences crave truth, and your body is an irresistible truth." She broke down in tears. But her tears changed nothing. The film premiered, and the international version kept the explicit scene intact. Julia never spoke of it publicly. But in 2022, during a private interview with close friends, she slipped, "If anyone asks who I hate most in life, I won't hesitate to name the first man who put my body on screen. Without my consent, think." Julia would stop there. The fourth name once held her hand on stage to present an award and stole her career-defining role. Through a dirty game of Hollywood politics, the fourth name, Meryl Streep. She didn't just steal a role, she stole a piece of my life. In 1991, Julia Roberts received the script for a deeply layered psychological drama based on an unpublished memoir of a woman who survived war only to be emotionally suffocated by her own family. The role was crafted specifically for Julia, raw, emotional, and far more complex than the romantic lead she had become known for. She spent 7 months preparing, collaborated with an independent screenwriter, co-developed the script as a producer. Julia believed this would be the performance that earned her first Oscar, but as the project began pitching to investors, a leaked version of the script landed in the hands of CAA, the agency representing both Juliet and Mel Street. Just 2 months later, Julia was blindsided. The project had been renamed. The screenwriter had been bought out. The lead role was now Meryl Streep. The film, retitled The Last Silence, was publicly announced as Meryl's personal work. Julia received no credit, no acknowledgement, not even an apology. It was the first time in her life that Julia Roberts spiraled into depression, withdrawing from all film projects for nearly a year. She developed insomnia and panic attacks triggered by just hearing Meryl Streep's name in the media. "I don't hate her because she's talented, I hate her because she knew I bled to build that, and she stepped over it." Without ever looking back after that betrayal, Julia refused to work with Meryl again unless a legal contract explicitly outlines scene breakdowns, role definitions, and creative control. And the final name will shatter any illusion you've ever had about Hollywood's most charming leading man. He was once America's boyfriend of the nation. But to Julia Roberts, he was a nightmare in a tuxedo. The fifth name, Bradley Cooper, he didn't just seduce me into bed, he seduced me into headlines, into scenes, and onto the pedestal of humiliation. It happened in 2010 when Julia Roberts was casting for The Art of Falling, a dark romantic drama she was producing herself. Bradley Cooper, fresh off the success of The Hangover, was the rising star, charming, sharp, effortlessly magnetic, the exact type of man Julia let her guard down round. They began a flirtation right at the casting session. Within weeks, Julia gave him the lead role, passing over 3 seasoned actors. Many warned her, but Julia trusted her gut. A mistake during filming Bradley leaked tabloid rumors of their relationship, exposed private behind-the-scenes photos, and quietly pressured the director to change the ending, so his character would shine more when Julia discovered he had secretly recorded one of their private conversations to use for character research. She exploded. But instead of apologizing, Bradley shrugged. "This is how I stay real in a role, don't you want the film to be great?" After that, Julia removed his name from the sequel's cast list, severed all ties, and has never spoken his name on television. Since some men broke my heart, but Bradley Cooper made me disgusted with my own judgment. Hollywood teaches people how to act, but it also teaches them how to hide knives behind compliments. For Julia Roberts, the $1,000,000 smile couldn't conceal the deep cuts from those who once called her a friend, a lover, a trusted colleague. Those 5 names aren't just wounds, they are the darkest chapters in a memoir she'll never WR.